So, who here has seen this little article? Who here has seen this on Twitter? You probably have. From The Telegraph, a taxpayer-funded wildcat conservation group has partnered with a furry event that caters for people with a sexual interest in animals. And it's like, great, we're doing this again. And then the caption with it, taxpayer-funded wildcat charity partners with furry event celebrating animal fetish. Awesome. Exactly what furry is not about. Very good. And everyone thought that this was whatever it was supposed to be for the sake of clicks. It was just so false and wrong about what furries were about. A lot of furries were quote retweeting, leaving their thoughts, saying that this is entirely false, this is not what furries are about, and you're just trying to embellish a point for the sake of clicks. Fun fact, one day later after this tweet was posted, Womp Womp got community noted. Love it. You love to see it, where community notes actually are doing what they're supposed to. So with that same post, readers added context for thought people might want to know. Furries, or the furry fandom, are fans of anthropomorphic animals. Very good. Straightforward definition, nothing wrong with it. The exact opposite of this. Whilst the furry fandom does indeed have parts of it dedicated to sexuality, erotic art, or fictional/cartoon and queer culture, zoophilia and acts of bestiality are extremely taboo in the furry fandom. And then it adds a Wikipedia link about furries and the furry fandom. The only thing that I would personally change about the community note here is that it's not that bestiality acts are extremely taboo in the furry fandom, it's that we don't fucking like them, period. You know, that's the one thing that I think furries strive and try to correct. They work towards, not, you know, in actions, but in correcting people, in that furry is not the same thing as zoophilia. It is not the same thing as bestiality. We do not like zoophiles. We do not want them in the community, or really anywhere at all. That's more of the point of it, and furries have worked hard to dissociate from this weird misconception about it. Yet unfortunately, with this article, we're thrust back into like 2014 cringe era, when like Pyrocynical and Leafy is here, were like the big names, just kind of dunking on anything that was seen as weird. And unfortunately, you know, if you have two brain cells fighting one another, you'd probably argue that furries are this animal fetishistic group, or have a sexual interest in animals. Most, if not all, furries, I would like to argue, do not have that, and do not want anything to do with zoophiles. There you go. I've corrected the article, and luckily the community notes did too. But this article, I think a lot of people wanted to give it a read. However, when I went to go and click on it, it immediately went to, you have to sign up to read this. And it's like, well, shit, I don't even want to give you clicks on this. But luckily someone came in clutch and sent me and a few others pictures of the article, so that we don't have to give them ad revenue. So I can just go through this as such without worrying about it. And so this is what the article was actually about. This is from The Telegraph, UK news website of the year 2024. Cut ties with furry fetishists, taxpayer-funded wildcat charity told. Wait, cut ties with furry fetishists? Is there tea that I just didn't know about with this? A gathering featuring anthropomorphic erotica and fetish suits will be held in support of Scottish conservation group. Wonderful. This, I swear to God, this is like if an anti-furry grows into adulthood and becomes like a reporter. Because there's no way that any like reasonable person who does like a little bit of research into furry, who isn't already jaded against the community, this is what they'd put out there. Anthropomorphic erotica and fetish suits. I've never heard a fursuit called a fetish suit before, unless it's by someone who's so out of touch. I feel like they really tried hard to make this not like what furry is about. Like, they had to really try to make it look like this. But either way, this is the beginning of the article, and then a picture of the European wildcat, Felis sylvestris. Either way, this is the article that reads as follows. A taxpayer-funded wildcat conservation group has partnered with a furry event that caters for people with a sexual interest in animals. So first statement, already wrong. Got community noted on Twitter, and a lot of furries disagreed with what it is. And the fact that you have the entire community of furries kind of going against this article and what it's about should tell you that it's probably wrong. But if that was their goal at the end of the day, to get traction, to, I guess, to some extent rage bait, then yeah, you know, you're gonna have a lot of furries talking about it. This feels more like what it should be, an opinion of you think furries are this, rather than the actual definition of what the community is about. But either way, let's actually read this. Saving Wildcats, a partnership between the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, RZSS, and SNP government agencies such as Nature's Scott has been unveiled as the official charity of ScotiaCon. ScotiaCon, at least from my knowledge, is a go-to furry convention. It's pretty much Scotland's go-to furry convention, the furry convention of Scotland, and I guess they highlighted this, that Saving Wildcats, the, I guess, charity that usually partners with a furry convention, which this is pretty normal to see. You know, you'll have furry conventions partner with some sort of wildlife charity or charity that's supposed to support and give help to wildlife, to animals, which is just kind of what furry does for charity. It's very philanthropic. That's like one of the core things that isn't really talked about or given credit for, is how philanthropic a lot of these conventions and the furry community really is, especially for charities here, such as Saving Wildcats, which partnered with ScotiaCon. The gathering is expected to attract around 1,200 furries who dress as anthropomorphic creatures to the behind closed doors Glasgow event. They say that as if it's like such an alien term, like it's so unknown, like as if people don't know what furries are, which again leads me to believe the mentality of this article was written from like 2014 or 2012 or something. It's fucking wild already. Concerns have been raised owing to links between furries and sinister sexual fetishes, leading to campaigners to urge Saving Wildcats to cut ties with the creep convention. All right, so the anti-furries and the boomers with maybe two brain cells fighting against one another with no other issues in life. I mean, to be fair, I don't know what life is like in Scotland. I'd like to hope that it's a little bit more stress-free than what it's like living in the US. So who knows? And maybe the whole, that's something to take into account as well that I didn't think of. What is the general consensus of what I guess a specific country thinks of furries versus like the furries in that country? Does that make sense? Because I know like if you asked like the general populace of like the US, most people would be fine with furries, I'd like to think. But like in other countries, I don't know what it's like. And when you see like, I guess the campaigners against furries, what does that mean? But RZSS denied having an official partnership with ScotiaCon. However, it emerged that it had welcomed furries to Kincraig Centre in December, where costume ScotiaCon representatives were granted behind-the-scenes access to Saving Wildcats conservation work and posed for photographs, which usually you do. And I'd like to think that, they said there wasn't an official partnership because, quite frankly, if you're already coming with an antagonistic mindset, you want to be as divergent as possible, because I can only assume what questions were asked as soon to the Saving Wildcats Foundation. Like, is it true that you partner with these people that are sexual in nature and do all sorts of this bad stuff? And it's like, well, we haven't made a decision yet, probably what it would have gone. But yeah, this is also pretty normal, where you'll have representatives of the con come in for photos to help promote the charity and all that for the con. It's normal. Either way. One session being staged this weekend is a workshop on writing furry erotica, led by a writer who advertises extreme content online and specializes in producing graphic fantasy stories involving animals. Okay, so they just highlighted someone doing an 18-plus erotica panel at a convention. Did they also want to highlight any of the other, panels happening at this convention per se, where not all of them were probably along the lines of fetish-driven or sexual-driven? Did they want to highlight any of those, or was this the one that was the most important one? As if it's the most problematic thing. Also, writing furry erotica, I don't even think I've been to a panel like that, but wild. Another late-night session involves wearable inflatable pool toy suits, a sexual fetish shared by some furries, while another is based around silicone, spandex, and neoprene costumes. Okay, so it seems like here they're really just trying to look for problems within the community and see them as like a bad thing. Pool toy inflatable suits, nothing wrong with that, whether it's furry or not. Literally nothing wrong with that. People have an inflatable fetish. They're really trying to frame it in a way that this is like a bad thing. And yes, furry does have adult sides to it, but if you're looking for just the adult things and looking for it as like a gotcha moment against furries, then you're gonna have like approaches like this. You're gonna have articles like this. You're gonna have like the Anthpo video. You're gonna have people really trying to look at like bottom of the barrel examples to try and get their point across that furry is bad. And when you take this, approach as is, obviously you're gonna focus on this. Like this isn't even that bad. Oh no, they have an 18+ panel, consenting adults doing consensual things that they consent to. Oh, I know. Wild, insane. So this is the next section of the article. It's titled Ban on Bestiality. Sorry, Bestiality. I'm just not allowed to be the best that I can be, but it's supposed to be ban on bestiality. Is it spelled bestiality or bestiality? Maybe it's like I guess an area thing on how it's spelt? Like flavor versus flavor with like a U. That's the correct spelling. Okay, I'm an idiot. Never mind. That is the correct spelling. I thought it was like actually spelled bestiality as in like bestiality. It would make sense if it was, but I'm probably an idiot. Either way, ahead of the event, organizers have also warned attendees not to display artwork depicting pedophilia or cub porn. Very good. As a convention or any sort of event should. Is that a problem? Is that a problem to say like, hey, we don't allow this at our con, which is actually a generally, objectively agreed upon bad thing that you don't want? Is that a problem? Did I miss a memo or something? Either way, they have also banned images depicting bestiality involving humans or largely human-like characters, though species transcending sexual activity is permitted. Don't do the thing. Oh, that means people do the thing. Again, see what I mean? It's like, it's more insinuative. I get it that it's like listing out things that happened or didn't happen at the con, but again, if you look at it through this frame and you just kind of leave things as is and leave it up to insinuation, then it's not. Look, this is why as well, if you, this just goes without saying, I feel like, but I just want to say this for everyone. If there is a furry article out there and you see furries bashing this article saying it isn't true, it's very likely a bad article about furries. It's usually very non-representative of what the fandom is actually about. That should just go without saying though. Either way, let's keep going. Marion Calder, a co-director of the 4-Woman Scotland campaign group, said, while Saving Wildcats may have misunderstood the sinister interest groups that attend furry conventions, they must immediately cut ties with this event. Again, does not directly say what these groups are, and also tries to lump one group or one set of people in with the rest. This is exactly the same thing that happens. Oh, you have this one person who could be a furry, says they're a furry, that did a bad thing, so that means all furries are representative of this, or associated with this, or are okay with this. When time and time again, it's been a whole like decade plus at this point where furries have been like, no, we don't associate with this and we don't like this stuff. Stop grouping us in and being stupid for the sake of it. But again, you know, this article seems like it's trying to make a reach for the reason of it. Let's keep going. Parents should be aware that while this convention may seem like harmless fun, it is anything but. The fact that the organizers felt the need to warn attendees about cub porn and bestiality tells you all you need to know. And that's what I have to ask too. How did they warn attendees about it? Usually this is in like the code of conduct or like terms of service of the convention. I'd like to think that, you know, if you are saying, hey, don't do this, it means that you're also trying to curate the community so that this and this is not welcome at it. Whether that's in the event with the ScotiaCon or in the community in general. Like what's, see what I mean? Where you could say like, try and make a stance where this sort of thing is not okay, but then people will be like, wait, why do you have to say that that's not okay? What's the reasoning by that? It tells you all you need to know. Yeah, I mean, if you got two brain cells fighting one another, or if you're looking for a reason to be upset, which is exactly the point of this. And also, it bothers me when this narrative is taken for a stance against furries, and it's just like you can see the holes in the argument. You can see where it is trying to have an echo chamber and grab at literally any little thing. And keep in mind, this is the exact approach that like 12-year-old anti-furries do all the time. They see like one article about someone who associated with furry or called themselves a furry who does a bad thing and is like, oh, these are the people that you let into your community. But regardless, I'm gonna keep going and see where all else this goes. Artworks, which are to be auctioned off, depicting toilet-related activities are highly discouraged, though ScotiaCon stopped short of imposing an outright ban. So I'm assuming it means poo-poo and pee-pee. I think. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine is what this means. Saving Wildcats, which also involves the public bodies, Cairngorms National Park, and Forestry and Land Scotland, and received 400,000 currency in funding from the Scottish government in 2021, is currently listed as having a stall at the event. Well, when you phrase it as a stall, that probably is, you know, more of a local thing, but more of like a table, an area for you to check out about the charity, which is usually what most cons do. Very good. Very observant, I guess. They were due to take their place at the convention alongside stands run by an author of pornographic furry novels and an artist who produces explicit furry images. See what I mean when it's focusing on that and it doesn't realize that that might be a fraction of it, or it might be in a proper spot, like an 8. That's what I think as well. No matter how much you put things behind closed doors or in sort of the context of it being 18 plus in an adult only space, behind curtains, sanction off, part of the convention, but also part of the convention, they'll still make that like the one thing that like is probably the one thing that's right there when it isn't. It sets this narrative that all these parts of it are right there, when usually that's not the case. Usually it's very much separated. But hey, regardless, that's what people do. However, after being approached by the Telegraph, RZSS said it would no longer send any representatives. Why is that? Was it because of the campaigns against the foundation or the charity to partner with the convention? Or was it specifically because they said, Ms. Calder added, the only involvement Scotland's leading animal charities and government agencies should have in this creep convention is to loudly condemn it. Instead, it seems they are happy to participate in and endorse an event in which at least some participants clearly have an unhealthy interest in animals and children. At least some participants. But wait a minute, with the article and what was being talked about, it was made to seem like it was majority of like what you would see constantly with all these fetish panels, the inflatable panel, the erotica panel, all these stalls or booths with selling erotica and all sorts of furry pornography or something. What happened to that? I mean, again, it just seems like this distaste is taken more as fact than anything. Like, you can have a distaste for furries or uncomfortability with it for any reason, whether it's because there is a sexual part of it. But taking that and leading a narrative that it's this when it's not that is very not great. And that's how you get articles like this. Or 12-year-old anti-furries, which is probably what the target audience was here, unless the intention was to rage bait, which it might have, who knows. Simply beyond disbelief, the furry subculture dates back decades, with participants creating their own fursonas in which they dress as cartoon-like animals with human features. I mean, that's true. While some members of the fandom deny it as a sexual fetish, well, if you reference an article from like 2007 or something, then yeah, organizers of the Scottish event have moved to ban children under the age of 18 and fetish clothing in public spaces, though this may be permitted at some closed-door events. Wow! An adult-only furry convention. Because the subject matter of what they enjoy with it is adult-oriented. Just because it's also adult-oriented does not mean it's going to be strictly sexual in nature. There you have the answer to it. So here's the thing too, if it's moving to ban children under the age of 18, or at least having a convention that is for adults, why would you also include this part here? Parents should be aware that while this convention may seem like harmless fun, it is anything but. So you're saying that kids should go to this event that is for adults? Why should parents be aware of this convention for the sake of their kids? If this event is for adults only, are you telling me that kids should be allowed to go to this event? Why include this bit if ScotiaCon is literally an 18 plus adult event for furries? But hey, you know, that requires some brain gymnastics, sadly. While anatomically correct costumes or underwear that would expose the buttocks are banned, collars with leashes attached and dog harnesses are permitted. Are we really taking on the mentality that like harnesses are intrinsically adult-like? I mean, I guess it could be weird to anyone looking at it that anyone's wearing a collar or a leash, but like, the fuck are you expecting from anthropomorphic animal community? Organizers acknowledge that a ban on pup masks, usually black face coverings resembling a dog, and other pup play accessories may cause disappointment. Which, yeah, it's been I mean, that part is true because that's been more of a controversial or I guess discussive topic within furry for years now. But yes, they acknowledge that, and because some people might like it, some people might not want it, some people might want it. That's what it is. A convention made a decision on that. What's wrong with that? However, they said they can be worn at closed door events specifically for this purpose, or within a private hotel room. Which, yes, I don't know what the gotcha moment's supposed to be here. Yeah, you know, there's this thing that has intrinsically fetishistic properties somewhat with pup play. So even if some people might not be using it as such, keep it off the con floor and use it more in like an appropriate space. I fail to see the issue here. It's strictly stating like the rules that I feel like most other conventions or events when faced with these problems would do the same thing. I don't know, like, either way. Next page, and the little bit last of this article, which doesn't really end on a good note. I think this whole article is sucked to begin with, but who knows. Unusually for a major convention, journalists are not typically allowed access to cover the event, and attendees are urged to not engage with any unsanctioned media presence. I wonder why that might be. You know? Oh man, the furries don't want to talk to us? They don't want to talk to us? They don't want to get interviewed here? You need to get press media coverage for this private event? Why do you think that would be? Unsanctioned media presence usually means that they're trying to come in and not trying to have a gotcha or take you alongside, because that's literally been known that news companies and journalists have done that to furries. They've like cornered them and tried to ask them immediately uncomfortable questions, borderline offensive, if not already offensive, and then they'll be like, wait a minute, why don't furries want to talk with us? Yeah, I wonder. Stephen Kerr, the Scottish Tory MSP, said, "It is simply beyond belief that this NSP-backed Quango decided to support this highly inappropriate event." Highly inappropriate by what standards? If it's just an 18+ thing, or if it's because it's associated with such, then even then, I don't know. A Royal Zoological Society spokesman said, "This year, the organizers of ScotiaCon have chosen to raise funds for Saving Wildcats Project, which is a European partnership initiative dedicated to Scottish wildcat conservation and recovery. As a charitable organization, ScotiaCon has raised significant funds in previous years for animal welfare charities across Scotland. Clearly, the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland strongly condemns any behavior which is inappropriate, harmful to animals, or criminal." A spokesman for Nature's Scot said, "We were not aware that the Saving Wildcats project had been selected as charity partner for this event. However, we understand that the project will not be attending." And that's the end of the article, and then 50 comments. So, like, I don't know what the fuck this is. What was the ending here? What was it just alleged to all this stuff, and then at the end is like, oh, they're not partnering at the end of the day. I think they're not partnering because they were harassed. Fucking wild. Like, there's nothing more to say or add to this article besides it's bad from what we talked about. Overall, this article sucks. It does not fully represent what the community is about. In fact, it tries to take a portion that is always caught under fire for those that do not have critical thinking skills and tries to focus in on that. That is what it does, and puts blame on a charity organization for even remotely partnering with an event that has adult themes. Either way, this is just, it just insinuates on a lot, it alludes to a lot, and it focuses on things that might be seen as unsavory, and dials it up to 11 by insinuating so goddamn much about it. It takes a lot of what is factually said by the con or in the code of conduct and spins it as like, wait, why do you need to say that? Why does this need to be stated about the community?